Steve, I can tell you're particularly fired up for today's episode because you emailed me like that. Like when Steve emailed
that's because there was a lot to write. And I didn't want to text, make a long text.
Okay, that's fair. But I feel like when you email me things, that is when you're like, I'm especially excited for this.
Okay, well, we'll find out. I don't think so, but maybe so. Who knows? We'll see.
Okay. All right. We've got a lot to discuss. This is the Stuff Summer Says podcast with
Steve.
With Steve. I don't know why my voice cracked there. I don't know what's going on. I don't even feel sick. I just got like a frog in the throat. So, anyways, Steve, what do we have to talk about? We have a basketball game to talk about. We're going to talk about Penn State's basketball game against Drexel. That is what we were going to talk about.
I didn't even look at the box score. I wonder how many people showed up. I mean, Drexel fans showed up.
I mean, I want to know how many. If you are a Penn Stater and you were at that basketball game, please reach out to us. We would like to do a 10,000 word interview with you. No, we've got the football game to talk about. We've got our normal Darian and Steve style, but I haven't watched the game, and I don't know that Steve's watched the game yet, so it'll be like half of that. But Steve was also at the game.
I watched some of it. Okay. I watched the parts. I've watched a couple parts that I wanted to hear about.
Okay, all right, that's perfect. And then we should definitely talk about Penn State women's volleyball. That's pretty important. Pretty awesome. And then this will probably be the last podcast of the 2024 year. Obviously not of the 2024 football season, which is now almost into 2025. So we will talk about the game, the Fiesta Bowl as well. Some thoughts there. Okay, good.
Sounds like a good show.
Anna's grabbing scissors. I'm assuming she's wrapping gifts. No, she's cutting ribbon. She's cutting ribbon. Okay. She says. Now Marty's in here. All right. Anyways, where to start? Let's start with the gist of Saturday. And I think we had this whole idea. Everybody collectively had this whole idea the second that the college football playoff announced they were going to do games at Beaver Stadium or home sites in the first round, and that the possibility was very real that Penn State could have one, of what it might be like, what it could be like. And it lived up to everything that I think we thought it was going to be. It was an awesome atmosphere. It was a great day. It was cool to be in that experience of the cold weather, the snow, this like idea of football the weekend before Christmas. I think, and then the way the game played out, I think a couple of things about the game. Number one, probably Penn State's best defensive effort of the year, and they had 2-ish shutouts, I think, this year, or at least one. And I think the other thing that was impressive is Penn State's offense. Drew didn't have his best game, but Penn State's running game found a way to find an answer for that. And, you know, the score, obviously 2 of those scores were from the defensive side of the ball, but they scored, 3 touchdowns on the ground. And I think that was pretty impressive in the way they moved the ball against a defense that was supposed to be one of the best in the country in that statistic was pretty impressive. So that was like my 60-second-ish recap, thoughts, feelings. But the atmosphere was the highlight of Saturday. It was one of the coolest atmospheres I've ever experienced. Maybe not the coolest. Like I think some of the whiteouts are probably just as special, but it was neat. It was really cool.
Yeah, I think it was what people expected. It was a fun atmosphere. It was. We saw a handful of SMU fans that came by, and we always, hey, welcome to town, and they were just like taken aback. Like, why are these people talking to us, right? And why are they saying hello? Like, it was just interesting to see that on our little portion of the world. Like, and I know everybody that experiences the game differently from different places, depending on where they tailgate. But for us, that was kind of cool. And yeah, like, I mean, cynic me and noon game, bang the drum me. Turned out it was a pretty good atmosphere for a noon game. So, and in terms of game day presentation, I know we get there, it was cleaner. Mm-hmm. Like it just, it felt, while I was cynical about this college football playoff, people saying, oh, we're going to help these people put on an event, and kind of wrote about that beforehand. If they helped in that part of it, like, because they weren't trying to do business as much. Penn State wasn't trying to do business as much. It just felt cleaner. And a couple of the breaks, like that good teacher commercial that you saw at the Big Ten and now was on during the playoffs, was up on the screens. And it just didn't feel like Penn State was checking all its boxes. It was a show that was a little better organized that way. And again, the atmosphere itself, fans were geeked. It was no matter if you were whoever our friends are from York, that couple on the west side that lunges up at their stadiums, or whether you're a student who this is your first year as a student, this is the first time this ever happened in Beaver Stadium for anybody. So that, I think that was a thing that kind of got some people and made it even more special.
For all of the hoopla and hollering about the emptiness of the crowd and tickets being cheap, it was packed. I mean, there were up in the what would formerly be the student section there, on the two kind of wings of the student section up top, above like even where most of the SMU fans were sitting. They were a little bit empty, but up in your neck of the woods, it looked pretty well packed. I mean, we were crammed in by our seats. I think it was one of those cool moments and impressive moments. It was one of those moments where you're like, "This, I'm proud to be a Penn Stater because of this all coming together." Seeing this, the fact I think the fact that the whiteout worked in and we'll get to the noon thing because I think there's something there that we should probably talk about too. But the fact that the whiteout worked in December when it was 25 degrees out was objectively awesome. Like, so many people needed to buy new coats. Anna bought a new coat. I bought my lovely ski pants, which was the highlight, and wish I would have bought these 10 years ago because my legs were not cold at all. Bought those. Like, so many people I talked to are like, "Oh, I had to go buy a new coat." I saw a guy, the best one was this guy that clearly went to Joann Fabrics, got like at least 3 yards of fabric, and just sewed it, folded it over, sewed it together, and cut holes out of it so that he could put it over his winter jacket. And I was like, you know what? Good for you, buddy. And it was neat. It was really cool. Let's talk about the SMU fans, because did you see my tweet?
I did. I thought that was wonderful, and it kind of goes with what I was saying. Like, yeah.
I'm not gonna read. I'm not gonna read it because it's a little expletive laden. But you can go read it if you want to on my Twitter. It really happened. People are like, it did not happen. I understand, though, why people think it did not happen. It was funny to watch. I saw multiple SMU people have a culture shock, if you will, of coming to the North, where football is really a lot bigger way of life in terms of like at the college level. And then also all of the elements that they very rarely have to deal with in Texas, if ever. And it was kind of funny. Like, the thing that I kept thinking about was like the whole storyline for SMU this year has been they paid their way into this. They bought their way into the ACC, which gives them this opportunity. And then it kind of smacked them in the face that like it doesn't always work out that way, that money can't buy necessarily happiness, at least from a college football team. The tweet of the boosters and Bryson Chambeau all on the bus from Williamsport because all of the private spots were taken. One of the funniest things I've ever seen. It's hilarious.
Yeah, I mean, good for that. Like, I think good for them in having the guts to say, you know what, ACC, we just want to be in the conference. We'll make up the difference, and we have the money. That's great. And I didn't interact with other people other than saying, hey, hello, welcome to town, hope you have a good. But good on them, and like saying, hey, ACC, we'll show you how this is done. And they got there. They just weren't as good as Penn State. And it is a part of it. Like, we've been south for Penn State games. It's been Auburn, Alabama, and people have been nice. Alabama fans knew they were going to win that year. Auburn fans, I think, were just generally happy to see somebody else indifferent. Like, I'm curious what the experiences for SMU must be like in the ACC or something else, or even in Texas, right? Like, if they're like so surprised, people are like, not like, I mean, I'll cheer for the team, but I'm not out there playing, right? Like, and if you've invested your money to come across the country to do whatever, you don't need Joe Schmo in the tailgate lots being a clown to you, right? Like, that's just crazy. Yeah. So I think it's neat that anybody from any fan base does that. So I'm glad they came out, and I'm sure the weather was, we had people bundled up, they had people bundled up, but I'm sure it wasn't what they were accustomed to playing football.
Yeah. I think the weather legitimately had an impact on the game too. I think that was a big takeaway. And even if you look at some of the other games around the country this weekend, I think it had a real impact. I want to say this before we kind of move on to like game day production stuff and kind of ties into it. The Tony Rojas interception is probably one of my favorite Beaver Stadium moments ever. It was the way he ran the ball back, the how loud that stadium got. I never have felt, and that's not true. I haven't. It's been a while since I've felt Beaver Stadium shake the way it was shaking, and it truly does and was. And I just that was like the pinnacle. That was probably my football highlight for the day. But yeah, no, that Saturday was a special day, I think.
Well, and on the TV, the roar of the crowd starts before he intercepts the ball.
Yes.
Like you see it happening, and everybody's like, "Oh, this is going to happen," right?
Yeah.
And it happened before he actually got his hands on the ball, which was kind of neat. And yeah, and the upper deck was shaking like it hadn't shaken in a while, so that was neat.
No, it was cool. What was Steve's highlight of the day?
Oh, that's a good question.
Besides seeing me, of course, right?
Yeah, no, that's always. And your mom and Nana, right? Like that's
no,
that's
it was good.
Boxes, boom, boom, boom.
I appreciate getting to see you when you come into games now.
Well, yeah, because we're making that route, seeing the whole thing. I do think the actual that it felt like. I was going to say it felt good in the stadium, but the commercials are a pain in the ass. So that was a drudgery. Like that, the longer commercials were kind of a pain. I think the highlight was good football. Like it felt like a Penn State football game, right? Like it felt like a defense-led Penn State. I mean, I think the highlight is as you think it through, and maybe this will transition to something we talk about. For the people who are still not on the James Franklin train, and I don't know that I'm on it, but man, I've been writing a lot and saying a lot that makes it sound like I am. Like this was Penn State football. This is defense winning the game. This is a quarterback who, okay, right? Maybe whether it was windy or whatever else, like it could have been John Schaefer throwing those passes. I mean, or not throwing those passes. It was a defense-led, cold, hard-fought game that was Penn State football. So I think that was the highlight. For as much as has changed about the sport in many ways, this felt like it could have been 1986 in some ways in terms of what was happening there.
That's good. I think I agree with that. I think it wasn't splashy. I think, but it was still. It was still incredible, I guess.
Right. It wasn't really in question. And I don't know that if their quarterback wouldn't have had perhaps the worst half that the guys had, right? 2 pick sixes and another interception. Good Lord, you're setting records the way you don't want to set records. But that part of the experience, for as much as it has changed and how branding has happened and the money, the game itself still feels very familiar to what I was shivering my backside off in 1987, if we're talking cold games with Notre Dame. Like it was. So I think that was my highlight. It's still that part of it when the game is played still feels the same.
Yeah. No, I think the for me it was besides seeing you, which was great, and I genuinely appreciate the fact that Steve waits for me while I get stuck through the security lines. I appreciate.
Might be the thing I start doing now that gets me back into games again if I get to walk around. So yeah,
I think that just the energy of the entire day. We pulled into the parking lot and there was just like a buzz that I only can find replicated in big night games. That was very special. All right, let's talk about your article. What stood out to Mr. Samsel about the game day production? Because I had a couple things. I think most of my things are on your list. I think we're on the same page, but
I think it was the clean stuff. The stuff we knew wasn't going to happen, right? It wasn't going to be every sponsor, whatever else. This was the college football playoff event in Beaver Stadium. So there was that piece of cleanliness and spot on branding. The other thing that stood out, and it was kind of a negative. I don't know, maybe this is an old guy, young guy thing, and maybe this is me overthinking it. Like, probably the only negative for me was the uniforms. Like, those are the homecoming uniforms, right? Like those are the homecoming uniforms. If you start doing this for other games, we've started a slippery slope to something else that may come, maybe. I don't know. I expected
spicy.
And then with the branding, right? We still have the commercial, basic blues, blue, but no, it wasn't. That was the homecoming uniform. So I think that was what stood out for me, and the end zone change, right? Like those are the things you notice for me in terms of branding stuff. I'm like, okay, so why are you changing it back? Why in your biggest moment of the year is it going back? So
okay.
Otherwise, I think everything worked. Like it did what it was supposed to do. It felt like it was produced well. Yeah.
I liked the jersey decision. I thought it was cool. Like I thought the explanation and rationale. I bought the.
So I missed it. So what was the rationale?
It was James Franklin said it was about everybody that has played and.
Oh, okay. So that was the 40s, 50s, 60s quote, or 60s, 70s quote.
Yeah.
Okay.
It was about that, and I thought that was pretty neat because I thought, in terms of all of this stuff kind of colliding and coming together, I thought that was a good answer. I thought it was a neat, subtle touch. I had argued the year that Franco died, which is the year that Penn State went to the Rose Bowl. I said Penn State should wear those jerseys at the Rose Bowl because that would be a cool way to honor Franco. And I don't know. I thought the callback, the recognition. There was a video earlier in the week about this is all where it started in terms of we are, which you can debate the history of, right? But I think that if we're accepting that story, I think that was neat to kind of tie in that way. I still don't like the pants. That's my only issue. I wish they would have just worn the clean white pants. But I thought it is funny that they wore the white shoes, even though it said black shoes on that video as well. No,
I get it. I didn't have it. I wasn't putting the quote in context with that because I missed that piece of it. I was leaning that into the next time of like, this is where college football still happens, or basically whatever else he says, it's a real college football program here, where I was leaning that toward. So I'll buy the explanation. I do like, that's my old guy thing. Like, this is what the uniforms look like. This is what makes us distinctive. This is your biggest shot, whatever. Yeah. All those ones in those times, for the most part, I know there were more often than not look like the regular ones, right? So, and that's nitpicky, right? For the most part, I think the highlight was it came off well. It was smooth. It seemed to work. All those things.
I think my biggest takeaway, and you said it there, was how clean everything was. It was, none of it was excessive. None of it was grandiose. It was like a stripped down version of a normal game day presentation, but also some ways a better version. There weren't 600 different things going on. I had said this, I think tweeted this or texted you this, like the best part was the fact that the ribbon boards just said college football playoff, first round, and that was it. That was all they said, unless like Penn State scored a touchdown or like make some noise showed up on them. It was not 600 different colors flashing at me, and I know that sounds grumbly and a little old guy-ish, but like it's a little annoying, and I appreciated that they just kind of let things be and as is. And I think it actually added to the, oh yeah, we're here for this thing, not to be sold a bunch of ads, which yes, you could make that argument any different ways with the Allstate logo, etc. But I thought that was one of the big things. One of the other things that we had heard, and I think you had teed up before the game, was there's going to be fewer people on the sidelines. It didn't really it doesn't necessarily take away or add anything to the fan experience. It was just so noticeable how many people weren't on the sidelines.
Yeah.
And it was like, this is kind of nice. It's kind of not as annoying.
No, I mean, that's what because when you get up where we're at, like, you're just kind of wild. You can take it all. You see it all, right? So, I saw the sidelines. I'm like, damn, that looks bare. And it looked like some of the photographers were hanging out inside and didn't come out till they needed to, right? So it got a little busier once the game really started. But yeah, and I appreciate it. But again, it's them selling. It's monetizing. Like, let's get the donors down there. Let's get the letterman down there. Let's do whatever. Let's have the recruits come in. And I understand the purpose of all of that. It's just the game presentation looks better when it doesn't look, when a kid goes out of bounds and you don't lose him in the crowd, right? Like, it's just, you can still see where he went. And that's all.
No, I agree with that. It was starkly different. It was starkly noticeable that it was different. I think all of the worrying about I missed we did not get to our seats in time for the SMU video. It seemed like Penn State played the SMU video much earlier than when Ohio State played it, judging by what we were watching on the TV. Ohio State seemed to play theirs when Tennessee ran out onto the field. Thought that was a funny, interesting difference. All of that hoopla, no, that all felt like a home game. I think that was a big takeaway. For me, I kind of actually like the longer halftime. You said you were a little annoyed about the number of
Just
TV?
every commercial was like every commercial was 250 or 3, right? I mean,
Yeah.
250, 245. And I get it, like, but now we're so used to side by side anymore, right? Or action when it's happening. I think from the broadcast standpoint, there's got to be a sponsor somewhere, and there's probably a value to have a quarter presented by somebody, right? I mean, I guess that gets you less sponsors, but make them pay more and let them be on the screen. And I know they're producing TV shows that are going to be seen by, I don't know, maybe 10 million people once the numbers come out. But I don't know, do some respect for the people in the stands too, and then not make it such a, just, I don't know, it was just drudgery at times. Like, oh, okay, here we go, right? And I was like, good old red hat guy. I'm like, stop it.
Yeah.
Get off the field, right?
Field. No, I thought that
the band. Go ahead.
Oh, I was going to say, did you want to go ahead? Let's talk about the band, because I know you're judging by the article, you were particularly fired up about that.
And it's funny because we kind of walked in with them. Like, we ended up talking to a couple kids as we're walking across the bottom to get to you. And I look at these kids carrying their stuff, and we're on the ground level, right? And I'm thinking, damn, these kids got to take their stuff up. And they didn't. The person that was leading them had to ask a couple people along the way, like, where to go. Like, I guess I understand that those 100 seats aren't going to be sold because you put the band in them, but it's friggin' college football. Don't make the band come down 3 levels, or don't make them go up 3 levels, come down 3 levels, whatever else. Stick them in a corner somewhere. Stick them in the end zone. I know Penn State fans were there. Stick them in the end zone where we stick the alumni band, right? Or something. Just make it easy for everybody. It looks, I don't know whose decision it was, and it might have been the CFP's. It just looks petty and dumb.
I don't disagree with you. I thought it was kind of funny, but I don't disagree with you. I think if you're traveling all the way from Texas, it's a little bit disrespectful to stick them literally at the top of the stadium. Maybe throw them in the empties behind where the SMU lower bowl section was. I understand also why you didn't necessarily do that, because the student section's right there, and you want to try to prevent issues. One of the things that I was like very curious about and was paying attention to as a subplot of the game was, when were they going to go down for halftime? There were 14 minutes left in the second quarter when they started their march down for halftime. That's how much time they needed. And I thought that was pretty funny to note and see. So that was, I understand. I understand your logic behind that. And I wondered I don't know if that's SMU's full band size. It seemed kind of a medium. It seemed a
little late, and I don't know that we had that question with that. I don't know we had that question with them. Like, some girl we were talking to was from up north, Minnesota or something, and ended up at SMU because of family ties, right? So we were talking about her, how it wasn't cold and whatever else. But it was just, pleasant college kids doing whatever else. And again, they're some of the kids, the people that kind of get stuck in this whole thing, right? They aren't getting paid to play. They're there to produce part of the show and be the pageantry. And yeah, but while you're here, just go sit up there, carry your stuff, and do whatever, and probably take a band from take a bus from Harrisburg or whatever. I don't know. Like, we want the band to have that college football pageantry, but then we want to like treat them kind of like dirt when they're there. It just felt like it could have been better.
I thought it was no. I'm trying to think. There are a couple other things in your article. I do want to give a quick shout out that I think, like, back to the Tony Rojas play. That if you weren't in the stadium, you can faintly hear on the TV and I think was an impressive call. Somebody made the decision when Rojas is at the 5-yard line to hit the Zombie Nation button, and so that it was already playing by the time he crossed the end zone. And I just thought that was very good game awareness of we're gonna do this thing and take a chance at it, because he had to beat one more tackle there. And I just thought that was an impressive decision and a neat little thing. One of the other things I think that you called out in your article that I think is a fantastic idea, the BJC opening that up and letting people kind of hang out there, especially if it was the 4:00 game or the 8:00 game. I think that would have been an excellent idea. Or Pagula. Well, I guess Pagula. Well, the only thing is, did graduation screw this up?
Commencement was right. That would have been the issue for both of them, and I get that. But you don't. I don't know. It just seems, and again, there's a labor challenge in this market, right? There's getting people to work or volunteer. But Notre Dame had opened, again, a good point by you. Notre Dame played the night game, and it had opened a bunch of buildings around the stadium for warming stuff, right? Like for people to kind of come in and hang out. But the Jordan Center, again, it's probably, I'm sure it was commencement that made it impossible. But even if you open the concourse and open up like concession stands, right? Get some money for yourself from the concessions, close. It's commencement weekend. Sorry, can't get you in the seats, but I don't know, you probably get a couple thousand people around the concourse, and they'd probably be happy to buy some chicken baskets or something just to keep warm. And there's some found money. Again, maybe it's not found depending on how much you have to pay people to work and whatever else. It's just those kind of things. Again, hardy Penn State fans, God bless them. I saw pictures on people's social media all over all four sides of the stadium, whatever else, out, happy to be doing what they're doing and doing their heaters and whatever else. I just think there's a couple touches like that probably could have been, oh, wow, they thought of this too. Mm-hmm. And maybe they did think of it and just didn't do it because they couldn't. So I get that, but at the same time.
No, I think that would be, that's one of the things I've noticed about Penn State, that, and that's more so campus location of the stadium. A lot of the other Big Ten schools, like all of the, like at Ohio State in particular, I remember, like we've gone into a couple different of their buildings because they're just open and it's right near campus, and the stadium's on truly like a more ingrained part of campus. I think was interesting or was nice as an opposing fan when it was cold to warm up. I had another thought there. Oh, the one thing that I did notice, which is a good learning note for if this happens again in the future, we went in our normal gate F, which has been pretty quick all year. Like I think the longest time we had to wait was maybe 5 minutes for, I think it was Washington. It was rough. It took us probably 10 minutes to get from the back of the line to scan your tickets, and then another 10 minutes to get through the security. And I think that goes back to your point of they did not have the resources were smaller in terms of number of people that they could have to man those things. So you were kind of more funneled. So that would be my big like game day entry getting into the stadium note. Traffic after the game was a little rough, but that was kind of relatively expected. Traffic getting into the game was much smoother, and I think it was because it was colder than the Ohio State game, and I think people kind of knew that it kind of backfired almost to get there too early. You kind of needed to kind of spread it out. People were being more logical and spreading it out that way. So, yeah. Anything else? Game day production? Anything from your article? That I thought your article was a good summary of that.
No,
you want to talk about your lead and your ending of your article too?
Oh, Joel Klatt. Yeah, like I there was a lot of noise around that last week with him, and what I heard him saying was not a shot at the fans. Like everybody else that I've seen it has said, oh, he's taking a shot at Penn State fans. My sense is he's speaking from, and I get Fox has a tough relationship with Big Ten fans and Penn State fans in particular because of noon games. I heard Klatt saying athletics told them they couldn't do noon, right? Like, no, that's just not what we do, right? Like we can't possibly. Turns out, make a playoff game at noon and tell them to play it, call it a whiteout. People can end up still making noise at noon. And then, yes, it doesn't look as stark and striking as it does at night. It just doesn't. I get that. But at the same time, Penn State's not moving the needle with ratings, whether the game's at night or a Penn State game at night, a whiteout game at night. Nobody's watching the game because it's the whiteout. They're watching because it's the opponent.
Right. Which is
so if you're Fox and you have a chance to get Oregon Penn State next year at noon, you're going to do that because it's best business for you. I mean, maybe they'd make it a 7:30 start because they can a few times, but that early in the season, you've got baseball again probably. Mm-hmm. I think it's funny to me, everybody who complains about Joel Klatt and Fox and the noon games, if you owned the business and it was good business for you to open your doors at noon because that's when customers would come, that's when you do it, right? And I don't know. So yeah, I thought opening and closing with Klatt was, he's not wrong. Like this could happen at noon if people wanted to happen. That's all.
All right.
That doesn't make him any better at his job.
several rebuttals. I don't disagree with you that it was a shot at Penn State athletics and not a shot at Penn State fans. However, what I appreciate about it, if you look at it through that lens, is if it's a shot at Penn State athletics is sticking up for the fan recognizing that the fans don't enjoy the noon whiteout experience for
Right, it's true.
the reasons that we just listed out in terms of parking, getting to the stadium, getting into the stadium. I think also the circumstances are very different with a playoff game versus a whiteout, which is special and unique and the coolest experience that you'll probably ever experience as a Penn State fan, or one of the coolest experiences you'll experience as a college football fan, period. It's a bucket list trip. I feel like going back to the it just looks better at night thing, and I think a lot of ways it just also works better at night logistically. And so I for as much harping as I've done about like Joe the fan with Pat Kraft, I appreciate that. What I don't like about the Joel Klatt comment, and I said this last week, is it just further proves the point of Fox is looking at this as a corporate transaction. And when I look at it comparatively to ESPN owned by Disney, they are putting the customer first while having people in the background smart enough to make it a big corporate money grab, right? And everything with Fox just feels so disingenuous and so gray in the sense of like it's just like a beige, boring broadcast, nothing that interesting. Gus Johnson's going to scream his head off for no apparent reason. I think when you say things like that, and it was gross in the fact that Fox knows it has Penn State fans by the you-know-whats, and now it's grabbing them by the you-know-whats and twisting them, basically. That's what I got out of it.
Well, if they set next September 27th as a noon game, yeah, probably so. Or if they choose that weekend, right? Like, I mean, we haven't gone through and looked at what else is out there, those weekend jet and whatever else. But realistically, that's the second biggest game on the schedule next year.
Right.
There's Ohio State, Michigan, and there's Oregon, Penn State. And
it sucks. It sucks because there's nothing the fan can do about it. So that's why I go back to the point of like at least Penn State is trying to stick up for the fan.
And I don't disagree. Like I think they are. So if they're trying to stick up, do they say at the blue-white game, hey folks, just as you prepare for next fall, September 27th will be our whiteout? And own it. I mean, and just own it to begin with.
I think that's what you do. I think you make it. I think the mental gymnastics of playing this as a TV game first. No, like all of these other schools, even Ohio State or Michigan, like they say, okay, we're gonna do this then and there, and I think that's what you do with the whiteout, and then I think honestly, like I don't know. I still buy this whole theory going back to the damn document that when they announced the renovation plans and game day being included and BTN tailgate being included, but Fox Big Noon not being included. Like I think that actually gives Penn State and Pat Kraft more ammo to be angry at Fox because we're setting at the whiteout. Okay. Does Fox want to really be the bad guy and make it a noon whiteout? Okay, they want to do that. Great. Now fans are going to be annoyed and pissed off at you. And it could be
right. Well, and again, it's all pro wrestling in my world, right? There's good guys and bad guys, and Fox is leaning into that a little bit, right? Like if Klatt is talking back to the athletic department and hitting the unit, he's hitting the students at the fans at the same time, right? They're saying, hey, we're the people who are providing the money. We're going to do this. We're corporate. We're the bad, They are painting themselves as the bad guy, but let them do that, right? Go ahead and own your event. If the whiteout is what it is, and it's a bucket list thing, and people travel from all over the country, schedule it, set it, let people know. Like, here's homecoming, here's the whiteout, here's this, and then let somebody else decide, because then they will have clearly made a decision. But I don't know how the weekends get assigned, but Fox will have probably at least the first three choices, again, of weekends at minimum, and they're taking Ohio State, Michigan 1. And then I don't know what the best game is in the Big Ten after that, but you would think the rematch of the conference championship game is probably that.
Up there. Yeah. No, I agree with that. All right. Let's move on to branding, which it kind of brings us back to the article, but it ties into volleyball a little bit as well. Mm-hmm. So after the whiteout, but before the Maryland game, they switched the end zones back to the block. They had the block again this weekend in the end zones. Then I like the script. So I've enjoyed the script. You were kind of a little fired up about the script. And then you mentioned something about the volleyball match and the script being there and then the block being on their jerseys. And you were like, I'm confused. Just pick a font is basically what you're saying, right?
I am confused. Just pick a font. Like, I mean, I get the script was a script PSU on gray warm-up jerseys, warm-up jackets for the women's volleyball team when they walk in the arena, and then a block, Penn State spelled out full. I don't know. Just pick one. Like, I mean, and I guess I don't watch enough as closely of other schools if they're doing the same stuff, but it feels like Ohio State is a block O and Louisville was the bird and whatever. Like it. So I get having variety and different audiences and different people who may want to purchase things and that kind of stuff. It just seems like, and it goes back to Penn State again, kind of having the athletic mark and the university mark, right? We're probably one of the few, it may be one of the one or two that has a different thing for both pieces, right? Which also adds to a level of confusion. So it's not confusion so much as it's just, I don't know, consistency, I guess, in my world. It's not the confusion C, it's the consistency C.
I think, and this goes back to something I wrote, I think, all the way back in January when the hockey team had the script font jerseys. One of the things that I feel is that it's annoying, and if you like the script font, it's very hard to find and purchase anything with the script font. Mm-hmm. So it's weird that they're still not selling things now almost a year later of that, which those have been on. That's actually been on the Lady Lions jerseys for several years now. I think at least 2 years. So I do understand where you're coming from, though. That it felt like they were going to lean into it a lot, and then they kind of backed out of it. And I don't know why they maybe made that change from forward to back. And I don't know. To me, it kind of feels like it feels an administrative. Like it's kind of like how. Trying to think of a political example, but like it just kind of feels like something that like this administration, in terms of like Penn State's athletic director and people around that, are like, we want to try to put our stamp on something, and we're kind of half-assing it. I think would be the best way to say it. Either go for it or keep it.
That's fair.
There's the other thing is there's like 3 different word marks now, because there's the boring Helvetica one. There is the one that's got a serif on it, which is the volleyball jerseys that just said PSU on it. Those ones were a different one. And now there's a script one. I understand. We just need a little bit of visual identity that's consistent, I guess would be the best way to say that. Yeah?
I don't disagree.
Okay. All right, let's talk about Penn State women's volleyball. I don't know if they ever left, but it kind of feels nice to have Penn State women's volleyball back, in terms of like it's among several things. It is impressive that this is now possible, that this can carry from the Russ Rose era, which was very dominant, and we probably took those little 1.5 mini dynasties for granted. Well, I guess that the first one was a true dynasty, right? But it was refreshing and neat to see in December people, and particularly on a big football weekend, people caring about Penn State women's volleyball. And I think just impressive as hell in terms of everything that Katie's gone through, and her leadership is one of the coolest, best storylines we've seen. A couple of people have reached out to me. We went back to our polling auditor. The results were what the results were. Okay. Now, does that mean that we will look at procedures and maybe do a school year person of the year? I think that's a fair thing to consider. I think that maybe is how we shift it in the future. We'll go back to our board and discuss. But no, it just kind of felt comforting to see that Penn State women's volleyball can go do this again. And I think the other neat thing is they kind of leverage the portal a little bit, right? Like they're one of the first teams at Penn State to really leverage the portal and have true success based out of it. We've had individual success, particularly with football. We're seeing it maybe a little bit with basketball, but I think in particular, they feel like the biggest portal benefiter Penn State was.
Yeah, yeah. I think all of what you said, I agree. I think it's like they weren't gone, but they're back at the level that people were accustomed to them being. And Katie's story certainly, got people involved. We stayed up till what 12:30 to watch them beat Nebraska, which turns out talked to some people before the football game. We went to a watch party for IU Notre Dame, lots of volleyball people there, and I said something about John Cook. I'm like, they're like, oh no, you're right. He's not a nice guy. Like we don't like him. I'm like, okay, never mind. Like I'm like, but it seems like maybe he could be. No, no, he's not. So that was interesting. And they were dominant. I mean, in the final, I mean, yes, they lost that second set, and the encore interview with her afterward was like, well, we got to do this better, we got that better. I'm thinking, look, nobody from her perspective, it's me. I'm thinking, nobody expected us to come in here and sweep them. Like, so we had a set. So
Right.
what? Like, and I'm sure that feels more like the message to the team was like, okay, nobody thought we were going to sweep. Let's just get these next two done and be done, right? Like, and yeah,
And I think that's kind of what's been cool about this team is like they've just had a lot of just like workman mentality moments where they're just like when they beat Louisville, that was kind of the turning point of the season or the attention grabbing point of the season was when they beat Louisville in the early, like I think early September, maybe even August. And people were like, oh, okay, they might be for real. Like, and I think the way that they've carried themselves, in particular, has been neat and awesome to see.
Did you watch semis and final both or not?
Caught a little bit of the final. Watched the pretty much from the second set on of the semis. I think
broadcast wise, thoughts?
you tweeted it, and I don't disagree with it. I think they're doing an okay job with volleyball. I think the play is much better than the broadcast. One of the things that I get annoyed with volleyball in general, as somebody that tries to watch a lot of volleyball, is them cutting to different camera shots a lot, and then you're missing the actual action on the court, and because volleyball points can happen so quick. Oh, they just got 2 points. How? That really bothers me during the Olympics because during the Olympics they take commercial breaks during matches, and that really bothers me. There were a couple moments like that. No, I think for a sport that is, I don't know that it's growing in popularity, but it is at least at a decent enough level that it probably deserves a little bit more reverence and a little bit more. I wasn't wowed by the broadcast.
Yeah, that's just curious. Yeah, I'm glad. First woman coach storyline was great. They gave that all it deserved. I don't know. This seems like we had 2 people in pregame. We had the 3 announcers. There was just so many voices that they weren't focused. And I never, in terms of, and the Katie story was the same interview both times, like from the semifinals to the final. Like, hold a little something
Right.
back. Give me something so it feels special. Just because the people that are watching are hardcore people for sure. So give them something a little different. And then the other thing for me was like the video game angle. Like it just doesn't. I'm not a big fan of like the high end zone from either team. Just because you can't. There's no depth perception, right? Like I just can't see that. And everything that matters happens at the net. So give me
the traditional
that
shot.
Right.
Yeah, no, and I think that's kind of what too many bells and whistles, and sometimes you just need simple.
Yeah, there you go.
All right. This week's. Oh, we should probably talk about the Boise State game. Sorry, let's briefly talk about that.
Okay.
I'm not going. Steve, are you gonna go?
Nope, watching on TV. Know where my seat's at right now.
Okay, perfect. I'm very happy for you. Here's my general thoughts. And I think this is where I'm going to go in terms of writing wise. And I think we talked about this a little bit last week. This game is almost a referendum on the fact that we have poured money into this football program, right? You are a top 10, maybe top 8 football program in terms of dollars, athletic of war chest, of facilities, et cetera, et cetera. You have a very important game against a team that they're not a small school by any means in terms of football prowess, but in terms of optics, you should beat them because you're the stronger, bigger guy, right? Like in terms of all of the money, recruiting, everything that goes into it. And it feels like this could be a referendum on that. And I think taking care of business in the way that you've continually taken care of business when you are I think I saw a 10 point, 11 point favorite, I think, to me, not letting that opportunity of proving this allows you to prove you're one of the best football teams in the country, and it proves that all of everything that just went into the push and boost was worth it. Yeah.
Yes. I think this is the most important 1-0, right? Maybe of Franklin's career here. I mean,
because if they get this,
because it gets you the semis, right? Then you're one of the final four teams in college football for this season. You've arguably made elite, right? Because it's usually 4-6. Forget about the path and whatever. This 1-0 is really big, and I would be surprised if they didn't make the step. Like I would be surprised if they didn't win. Just no lack of appreciation for what Boise State has done this year and the talent they have on offense and some other things. But it just feels like Penn State's the better team from the bits and pieces I've seen of Boise State.
And I feel like obviously a lot of that is related into and around Ashton Genty, right? Like he's a Heisman candidate for a reason, a Heisman finalist for a reason. But I think for me, I think it's just like this one feels, in a lot of ways, it's not a gimme game because it's not, but it's a more simplified opportunity because there is no history, there's no backstory. It's just go out there and win the football game. You don't have to worry, and then you can have all of these other conversations kind of after the fact. And so I don't know. I feel good about their chances. I feel similarly to how I felt about SMU. I didn't know how close of a game it was going to be, but I don't think it was going to be an easy game. It proved to be wrong. Maybe I'm hopeful that I'm wrong again this time around. I feel like, I don't know. I just think this is I feel like other thing that kind of you can kind of see and feel almost, and it's hard to put your finger on this. It's just, and Audrey had a good article about this week, Audrey Snyder in The Athletic. It was kind of just the vibes right now and taking the momentum of all of this stuff working together, attacking it, moving forward with it, and not letting a very good opportunity go to waste. And when you look at the math and statistics and everything involved, when it comes to the X's and O's opportunity, these are ones that, as we've talked about 150 times of this season, that Franklin doesn't let go to waste. So,
yeah, no, I think this is another Fiesta Bowl that goes well for Penn State. It's a great opportunity, fun environment. So looking forward to seeing it and seeing what happens.
First meeting between the two schools. And the first of at least this is back-to-back years of new opponents in a bowl game. First time the teams met. And then Nevada is a new opponent next year, and then Marshall, which that one is very surprising to me, but Marshall is a new opponent in 2026. So nice little
run.
Okay, old guy, young guy. You said Christmas card update? Did I forget?
I guess my question was: is it an age thing on who does like the annual Christmas card thing, like that they send out to people?
I don't think it is. I think it is. You're talking to the wrong person. We do not send a Christmas card. But when we were not getting a lot of Christmas cards, I was like, we haven't gotten any Christmas cards. What the hell's going on this year? I appreciate the Christmas cards. I appreciate the funny ones. I appreciate the ones that are not necessarily about you and like have a thoughtful message of not just like merry cheer and happiness and hope. No, like tell me like what little Johnny's up to and how he's flunking the second grade or something like that, you know?
Wouldn't it be great if somebody has to send those ones that are actually telling you that kind of stuff, right? Like, oh yeah, Johnny's great, but he got in a fight, whatever else. So
just absolutely overshare.
What's her face broke up with her girlfriend, blah, 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 that kind of stuff. No, we're behind. So we usually, this will be, I think my opening line is, anybody can send you the first card of the season. It's not going to be us this year. So
yeah.
We're waiting for photos, and I think that's going to happen like probably on Christmas. So
and then I was told by one, the blue box.
I was told by one of the stakeholders that they wanted approval over the photos that were included of their children. I'm like, good Lord, nobody cares as long as their eyes are open. So yeah, we'll see.
Well, God bless you there, Steve.
Exactly. I didn't know they had ownership over my card. But whatever.
Oh, it's your card. Yes. There's your mistake. You thought it was your card, I think.
I know. I'm we're doing the mailing and the printing. I thought it was my card. What do I know?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. All right. I be honest, I haven't really thought about what the schedule of things is going to look like over the next 8 days or so. We'll have a game preview. We'll have 5 numbers. We'll have maybe something from Steve, right?
I'm going to have sports media stories for the year.
Okay, perfect. I think that would be good. I don't know what else we'll have. Just bear with us is what we're saying. This will be the last podcast before the Fiesta Bowl, and then we'll do the normal stuff after the Fiesta Bowl and see where things are at then. In the meantime, Merry Christmas to you and Susan and everybody else in the Samson.
And your mom as well. Yep.
Very thankful for you and our friendship and this podcast. Everybody listening to this podcast. We had a fun year. It was good. We grew a lot this year, and really appreciate everybody kind of hanging along, coming along for the ride, and Lord knows what's going to happen next. But website is stuffsummersays.com. On that website, there's a section called With
Steve.
5 stars, thumbs up, subscribe, all of that. We've got emails. Mine's Darian at stuffsummersays.com. Steve's is
Steve at stuffsummersays.com.
Yeah. Merry Christmas to everybody. Hope everybody enjoys. Lastly, my Twitter handle is at stuffsummersays. Steve's is
at Steve Sampson.
See ya. Bye.